Overview of our time together. So, we'll share a little bit about Solar United Neighbors and then start giving some background information about net metering in Nevada, the Public Utility Commission, as well as just the basics of general rate case and what's in your bill. And then we'll get into the specifics of what's in this rate case, and then talk about how we hope to defeat that so that this is not passed and how you can make your voice heard in all of this. All right, so a little bit about me. My name is Julia, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Nevada Program Director of Solar United Neighbors. I started at Sun this past year and was really excited about their theory of change, which I'll share a little bit later, and just the focus on community engagement and relationship building as we think about reimagining our energy grid. So Sun got started with a question, Mom, can we go solar? Back in 2007. And pretty quickly, they found that solar was really complicated and also really expensive. So they went ahead and asked their neighbors and connected with those around them to see if they wanted to go solar with them and combine minds as well as resources and started learning and figuring out um, a co-op model, the first co-op model that Sun ever ran. So since then, we have continued to focus on building out resources for people to go solar and making solar more accessible through guides and education, and then also advocating for solar rights. We work at a local, state, and a federal level to advocate for solar policy. We are a nonprofit and work in Nevada as well as 12 other states and DC and Puerto Rico. And we also have a national solar help desk that helps people wherever they are on their solar journey, from just thinking about it to any maintenance issues that you might be encountering to system end of life issues. We also offer roof reviews, proposal comparisons. Maybe you're just curious, like, my system doesn't seem to be producing what it was. Can you take a look at my solar data? And we'll do that for you. Um, and really, we are dedicated to consumer protection and utility accountability and making sure that we can build a better energy grid, and rooftop solar at the cornerstone of that. All right. So we're dedicated to creating that clean, equitable, and resilient energy system that will benefit everyone and help people access solar power. And a big way of doing that is ensuring that people receive a fair credit for the energy that they are sharing with the grid. That is what makes solar going possible, and that is what we are advocating for. And we're advocating for that tonight. All right, so what is net metering, otherwise known as NEM? Um, Net metering, some of you are probably familiar with net metering, but I think this is helpful review for all of us. It's a billing system for solar owners. When your solar panels um, are producing, there are probably times of day when you are using all of that power that they are producing. Maybe you have multiple appliances and devices on all at once. But there are also times in the day when your panels are probably generating more power than you are using. And during those times, that extra electricity gets fed back into the local power grid and flows to your nearest neighbor who's in need of electricity at that time. Net metering ensures that solar owners earn a fair credit for that extra power that they share with their neighbors. And without net metering, solar savings would be at risk. Reducing net metering credits or changing the structure, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, of how those credits are applied, makes it harder to achieve meaningful savings over a reasonable period of time. It would take longer for folks to earn back their solar investment in savings. And that means that fewer Nevadans would feel confident in making the decision to go solar to begin with. All right, so net metering in Nevada. Um, so 1997, we saw a 1-to-1 ratio with NEM. That's when you were receiving the retail rate of electricity. So whatever electricity you were purchasing, you were getting that same credit rate when you were sending excess electricity to the grid. But then in 2015, the Public Utility Commission reduced the NEM credit, increased fixed fees, and changed the rate structure, which had a massive impact on our solar industry and was a very controversial decision. There was a lot of outcry and advocacy. Maybe some of you even were part of speaking out against that and showing up for that. And so in 2017, net metering was reinstated, but using a tiered system based on capacity. And so that is the system we have now. And we're currently in the fourth tier where new solar owners receive 75% of that retail rate. And there's no capacity limit on that. And currently, credits are netted on a monthly basis and used to offset your energy usage over that whole month. The whole month is evaluated. Just to give people a sense of that 75% impact. So the current retail rate is about 11 cents per kilowatt hour. And so 75% of that is about 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So you can see that that 1-to-1 ratio is already diminished. And that's the starting point that we're coming from tonight. All right, so what's the Public Utility Commission of Nevada? So because we have monopoly utilities in Nevada, we have a commission that regulates those investor-owned utilities that are monopolies. And they are concerned with reliability, ensuring that energy gets to people and that we're not having grid outages and that people are able to turn on a light switch and there's power, as well as affordability. And they are always looking to balance the interests between customers and shareholders to make sure that customers have just and affordable rates, but also that shareholders are able to make a profit. And that's important for us to consider as we dig into some of this information. Who's on this commission? So we have 3 commissioners in Nevada that are appointed by the governor. Each commissioner has staff that support their work. These commissioners all have extensive legal backgrounds, as you will hear shortly. These rate cases are essentially like court cases, and there's thousands of pages of documents, and there's a lot of close reading and thorough review and analysis that is conducted. So what happens in a rate case? So the utility files a proposal, an application, and then there is a review process where the commission is reviewing that proposal, also reviewing the records, the books, and there are interveners who are submitting recommendations. These are public advocates sometimes, or organizations that are looking to ensure utility accountability. Then there are a couple of hearings. There's a public hearing where it's an opportunity for the public to learn about the utilities proposal, but also to express their concerns or views on the case at hand. And the public can also submit comment during that hearing itself, but also submit it beforehand to the docket. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. There is also an evidentiary hearing where the facts of the case are presented. There's legal briefs, there's expert witnesses who testify, and written testimony, as well as cross-examination. So it really is like a court case in some ways. Then the commission reviews the record, the facts of the case, and the legal briefs, and eventually makes a decision, which is announced through a written order. So we are in this process right now. The public hearing is scheduled for June 4th, but the review is happening. All right. So can everyone see this slide? Okay. Um, our friends over at Western Resource Advocates created some really helpful graphics that I wanted to go ahead and include tonight. So thank you, Western Resource Advocates. Um, What's in your bill? There is the base tariff general rate, there is the base tariff energy rate, and there's something called the basic service charge. Probably many of you are familiar with the basic service charge, but probably less familiar with the base tariff general rate and the base tariff energy rate. Um, the base tariff general rate is a variable charge that the Public Utility Commission sets during general rate cases. And this is where we are focusing tonight. This is where the utility recovers costs that they incur to serve customers, but to also profit on its investments. And this has to be approved by the Public Utility Commission. So this is related to infrastructure expenses, but also staff costs. Then there's something called the base tariff energy rate. This is also a variable charge, but it's not set in general rate cases. And this is essentially fuel costs. So it's a pass through. The utility is not making anything off of this. It's like they purchase natural gas and they are going to then pass that cost directly on to consumers. And then there's the basic service charge. This is set by the PUCN in general rate cases, and it's a fixed charge. So right now, that's $18.50, and some of you are probably very familiar with that number. And that's for meters, billing system, center costs. It's really looking at costs for serving individual customers. All right. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. There we go. So what does that look like on your bill? You can see here that we have the customer's usage, but then there's also that base tariff general rate and the base tariff energy rate. That is what makes up that 0.11329 number, that calculation there. So this is what will be impacted in this general rate case. You can also see the basic service charge. Any questions on that? All right, I'm not hearing from my other presenters, so we're going to keep going. All right, so for a solar owner bill, it's going to look similar, but then you are going to have kilowatt hours delivered, kilowatt hours received, kilowatt hours accumulated, and kilowatt hours net. This becomes important as we start talking about the 15-minute netting period. I also just mentioned the kilowatt hours generated. So we'll refer back to this a little bit later. But just know your billable kilowatt hours are calculated as kilowatt hours delivered minus kilowatt hours received minus kilowatt hours accumulated, which equals kilowatt hours netted. And what we have seen in media is that likely this is going to be an $11 increase for new solar owner bills. So they won't be seeing the same kind of credit that existing solar owners are seeing, which we care about. All right, so let's get into the specifics of this general rate case. So NV Energy is requesting to recover $216 million from customers to cover their expenses and allowed profits. This is double the rate increase that they requested in 2023. So that base tariff general rate is increasing from this just like statement right here. Um, so part of what is driving that is they want to increase shareholder returns from 9.5 to 10.25%. This is that return on equity, which is the rate of profit that a company has the opportunity to earn on its investment. And this has a huge impact on customers' bills. It can sometimes account for between 15 and 20% of a customer bill. Some of the recent investments that NV Energy has had is that Silverhawk natural gas peaker plant, the Reed Gardner battery storage project, and also the GreenLink transmission project, which some of you might be aware costs have really skyrocketed on. NV Energy also wants to raise its rate of return or the percentage of profit that a utility is allowed to earn on its rate base from 7.43% to 7.95%. Then there's also a residential assistance rate, which is a good thing, but it is not designed well in the sense that it's pretty prohibitive for people to apply, and they would have to apply every year. You have to be eligible for it as well. But if you are eligible, it would waive the monthly basic service charge. So that's that $18.50. We're not going to go into details about this tonight, but I do want to mention it. And then a demand charge for all residential and commercial customers. This would be a daily demand charge based on the highest usage during a specific time over your day. And that would be 19 cents per kilowatt. And we'll run through that calculation a little bit later. And then the last thing is they are proposing to move to 15-minute netting for new solar owners, which will impact that credit received. All right, so we're going to dig into the demand charge and the 15-minute netting period. It's important to know what's not in the proposal. So fuel prices have been falling and are projected to continue to fall until the end of the year. And so there are savings there. That's that base tariff energy rate that is dropping. And we said that the base tariff general rate is increasing. And we'll go through that a little bit later, but that's just important to consider as part of the full picture. So even though you're going to see some savings, overall, you will be paying more to the utility bill because that base tariff general rate is increasing. And as soon as fuel prices stop increasing, which is probably next year, that utility bill is going to go up higher and be more than it was previously. This also introduces a new level of complexity for everyone, especially would-be solar owners, because it puts the impetus on tracking your energy usage as you think about demand and the demand charge, and as you think about the netting period as well. All right. So I'm going to share a little bit more about why, even though rates are increasing, you will see a drop in this bill. It's because they're hiding this rate increase in dropping fuel prices. That base tariff general rate is again projected to increase $10, but because fuel costs have dropped and are projected to until the end of the year, and this is out of NV Energy's control, we're anticipating a $20 decrease on your bill. So it's a sneaky way of trying to hide a rate hike. And that equation there under the 15-minute netting, that kilowatt hours delivered minus kilowatt hours received minus kilowatt hours accumulated, that is really what you want to think about as we look at the 15-minute netting period and how that impacts credit. So you can see everyone is going to be affected by the new demand charge, and everyone is going to be affected by that increase in the base tariff general rate. All right, so I know this is a lot of language on a slide, but we really wanted to go through it thoroughly and make sure that folks had this to reference going forward. So with 15-minute netting, your system is judged every 15 minutes. It checks if you're producing more energy than you're using in that window. And if you are, you get a credit. If you're using more than you're producing in that period, you pay the full retail rate for that power, even if over the course of the day or month, you made more energy than you used overall. And in contrast, monthly netting adds everything up over the whole month. So if your solar panels overproduce one day and underproduce the next, it's balancing out, making it easier to reduce your bill and get a good return on your solar investment. So it really shifts the focus onto timing and not just total production, which has some serious impacts. It can reduce folks' savings, even if you're generating a lot of energy, and makes it harder to predict your payback period, but also is less fair for people who can't shift when they use electricity. It also is just an accounting nightmare. So very likely that this system will cost a lot more to run and introduce new administrative costs. And it doesn't really help with shifting demand outside of peak hours, which is when the system is strained the most. Because again, it could capture the highest usage at any time. It's not really pushing people to avoid those peak periods of time. All right, we just wanted to give people a visual of a solar production generation and what's being delivered to the customer. So the dark blue here indicates how much energy the grid is delivering to the customer. And the light green is how much energy the grid is receiving, the excess generation that system is producing. And the gray is the amount, is when the amount received is equal to the amount delivered. It's a reflection of that equation that we were referencing earlier. So you can see that between 8 and 9 a.m., the homeowner's system generated almost all of the electricity consumed, but they did still need to pull from the grid. But between the hours of 9 and 6 p.m., this system is generating more energy than the homeowner is consuming. That's that flow that's being sent to the grid. And by changing to a 15-minute netting period, the utility is reconciling that consumption and generation on a much shorter interval. And these shorter periods increase the variation in the amount of net exports calculated. A shorter period exposes can expose any real-time mismatches between a customer's usage and production, which can decrease the amount of credit that they would receive and ultimately affect that payback period of their system. Would-be solar owners would want to be really mindful of spreading their energy usage. And so this would add additional complexity to evaluating whether going solar is a good investment or not. All right, so the demand charge. It's often called a gotcha charge. And again, it's capturing the max usage at a specific interval during the day. Here in Nevada, our system is strained the most in the summer between the hours of 3 and 9 p.m. It's hot, we're running the AC, we probably are getting home from work. There's just a lot of strain on how much on the grid and how much energy people are using. In the winter, that's usually more between 5 and 9 p.m. NV Energy has a time of use plan that allows people to opt in to that plan, and those hours are between 6 and 9 p.m. And I say this all because time of use rates can actually be much more effective at shifting people's usage off of peak hours, whereas this demand charge doesn't incentivize that at all. So what can you anticipate as like an average demand charge? It's really going to depend on your usage. And we're going to walk through an example of that shortly. But more than anything, we want to emphasize here that it can be really difficult to understand and react to demand charges. It requires a lot of education and with that, it can eventually effectively become like another large fee on your electric bill that you can't do anything about, which is what we want to avoid. All right, so this is my personal data from February 7th. Um, to be clear, I am a low energy user, and this is also not the peak of summer. So you can see my highest usage was at 5 o'clock, and my demand charge for that day would be based on that usage of 0.3450 kilowatt hours. So let's calculate this. So in order to get to a kilowatt level for that hour, we need to multiply that 0.3450 by 4, and we get 1.38. And then we multiply that by that demand charge of 19 cents kilowatts per kilowatts. That ends up being about 26 cents. And then we multiply that over the month. And actually, this would be done every day, so capturing your usage every day. But for the sake of this example, we're just going to multiply it by 30. And that would be what my demand charge is. And we're borrowing this exercise from WRA as well. But we think it's really helpful because there's a lot of math involved here, and it would really task people with being mindful of their usage. It's not just about avoiding peak demand, it's about avoiding putting all of your appliances and your devices on. And it's really easy to not do that, right? You get home from work, you start cooking, you turn your oven on. Maybe you need to get a load of wash going, and you have the TV on and the air conditioning running. It's really easy for that usage to be high during that specific interval. Um, this is also just some background information. So the Energy Industry Association in 2024 said that the average Nevadan household uses about 925 kilowatt hours per month, or about 30 kilowatt hours per day. So that's a lot more than my usage. And you can see how it would be very easy for this demand charge to be much greater than that. Take a 1.6 kilowatt hour usage over 15 minute, that ends up being about $1.22 a day, and that ends up being $36 per month. And that's a big increase on someone's utility bill. All right, so how would your bill change through this rate proposal? So you would see a brand new charge on your utility bill, and that would be that demand charge. In my case, that would be that $7.87. Um, you would also see a change, that circled number that's made up of the base tariff general rate and the base tariff energy rate. Now, for now until the end of the year, that's going to decrease because of those fuel cost prices dropping. But after that, when fuel costs rise, that is going to increase. And you already have that base tariff general rate increasing as well, so it's going to increase dramatically. Um, And then if you're a solar owner, you're going to see your credit impacted. Um, we're seeing that again, that's going to be a likely $11 increase for any new solar owners on their bill. All right, so we have done a lot of education here, everything from the background to the case, to also just digging into what's at stake, what's at hand. And our goal is to defeat this proposal before it's implemented and Nevadans feel an impacts. For their household budgets, and for this continuing going forward. And how we're going to do this, we need people to weigh in. We need people to speak out about how these changes are unwanted and are not here to help Nevadans save money. So you can take action whether you have 5 minutes. You can go ahead and fill out a community feedback survey from our partners at Vote Solar. They're going to be using this feedback survey as additional evidence during their testimony. Maybe you have a little bit more time, like 15 minutes. You can help co-write a letter to the editor with Sun's help, speaking about the impacts of rising utility rates and the importance of solar savings so that more people can go solar. And if you have an hour, you can attend our upcoming comment writing workshop, where you will learn how to write and submit a comment, but also how to give oral testimony at this upcoming consumer session. Any action you take can help prevent years of economic loss, not only for yourself, but other fellow Nevadans. And we know that we need all sorts of actions, so any action is going to help us in this fight. And there's a lot of us, right? There's over 1.2 million electric residential customers in our state and over 125,000 solar owners. We want to continue to ensure that solar is accessible. So just like you were able to go solar and counted on those savings and the credit structure, we want to ensure that future solar owners have that same opportunity. And we know that we can also share this information with a lot of people. So you can tell your friends and family about this rate case and what you learned tonight, and how it might impact them. As I said, you can write about it. You can post about it on social media, and we can provide you with some articles to reference or some additional information if that's helpful for you. And you can also show up. You can attend the upcoming consumer session on June 4th. So the details of that, there are going to be two opportunities, one at the Public Utility Commission of Nevada at 1 p.m. in Las Vegas, and the other at the Clark County Government Chamber's office later that day. Because this is affecting Southern Nevada. That's why it's in Las Vegas and there's not a Reno opportunity. But we really need to see this as statewide because anything that NV Energy does in the South, they will use and as president to apply to the North. So that's why we also want Northern Nevadans to be showing up by writing comments and speaking out against this. This really affects our whole state. And I will be attending the 6 p.m. session and would love if you'd like to join me. But before we get to signing up for that, we have a comment writing session that will help people prepare to write comments as well as show up to the in-person session. And you can learn more about that comment writing workshop by following this QR code. We will also send it as a link in our follow-up email after this webinar. But this is a great opportunity just to learn more about how to engage at the Public Utility Commission because we know it can be intimidating and it's helpful sometimes to get it broken down and here's some pro tips. All right, so that was a wealth of information, and I'm curious if we have any questions. And I actually haven't looked at the chat. I know Juriel and Trinity have been trying to answer questions as they come up in the chat as well. Okay, so from Fred, thank you, Fred. The daily demand charge. So the daily demand charge is not related to the peak demand for the system. If I understand correctly, it is only related to a single household's demand. That is correct. And again, that's related to your highest usage during the day. That is what that's going to capture. Yes, great question. Can I join the workshop virtually? It is a virtual workshop, so you can definitely join that virtually. I'm sorry I didn't clarify that earlier. Um, Drew asked, does the residential demand charge have a chance? Do you mean in being passed by the commission? Maybe you could rephrase that. If your demand charge is calculated, are you saying why is it multiplied by 4 to capturing your usage and then multiplying it by 4 to turn it into kilowatts? And that's that 19 cents kilowatt charge times it by the usage because we are capturing it over 15 minutes and it's kilowatt hours, and we need to convert that into kilowatts. So we multiply it by 4 to get to that hour. That 15 minutes to then be an hour is multiplied by 4. Does that make sense, Drew? And I can go back to that slide if that's helpful too. Let's see. Oh, um, Trinity. I am struggling with not advancing. Oh, here we go. Here we go. There you are, Drew. So we multiply it by 4 to get that kilowatt level for that hour. And again, you will get the slides sent out to you. I know that was a lot to run through, so you can always reference it there as well. All right. Are there other questions? Yeah, thanks, Gregory. I continue to see my utilities go up and up. Natural gas has a huge impact on our electricity bill. There's little relief for homeowners and the time of consumption, as with being retired and using my AC. Families consume during peak hours simply by being home, so they will really get hosed. You're exactly right. Working families will be hit the hardest by a demand charge like this. Yeah, Arlene, that's a great. We would love to do a talk. You can send me an email after this. I'd love to connect more about that. Um, I'm just scrolling through the chat. Oh, Fred asked how many people joined this call. Maybe Trinity can answer that in the chat. I know we had about 44, but we had almost over 200 people register tonight. So that's great. And we are also doing a lot of advertising about this and trying to make noise so that people are informed about what's going on. Oh, can you show the QR code again? Great. Yes, I can do that. Mm, There we go. Okay, Lori, is there a bright line under which there is no peak demand? Um, I'm not sure if I understand your question. So right now we have NV Energy has a time of use rate where people can shift their demand outside of those peak hours. And I think that's in the slides, but if I recall correctly, it's like between 6 and 9 p.m. during the summer. But we actually know that the system is strained in Nevada between like 3 and 9 p.m. during the summer, and 3 and 6 p.m. during the winter. So the rates are not actually in alignment to shifting demand right now. So that's something that would actually maybe be helpful to look at in the future, is if we really did wanted to reduce the strain on the system. Um, oh, that's a good question. Is there another Berkshire Energy company that has done something similar to this? So this is the first daily demand charge for residential customers that an investor-owned utility is proposing, and that's um, pretty surprising, and is another reason why we should try and stomp this out. There are demand charges in Arizona, but they're not daily demand charges. But I know there's a couple of utilities that do have different demand charges. And I can send you some of the follow-up information about that, Richard, in an email if you'd like to learn more about that. Thanks, Fred. We are glad to be here and really want to be helping people understand what's going on their utility bill, as well as how we can advocate for a more democratic and fair and just energy system. Yes, I actually really appreciate what Linda said. It is a slippery slope for current solar owners because we have seen utilities um, start to attack grandfathered and existing solar owners in California. And so that's another reason why we are trying to take a united stance and a united front around this proposal here, because we don't want to see solar credit diminished, and we want to preserve it as much as possible so that it continues to be a good investment and more people are able to go solar. All right, well, I think we're gonna go ahead. We have one last poll question for you, and we'll pull that up right now. And this is again how you can engage and take action going forward with this general rate case. We talked about a number of ways you can do that, and this is just a way for us to hear what makes sense for you and how you would like to move forward. Thanks everyone for filling this out. We really appreciate your time tonight. Those are continuing to roll in. I'm going to give folks a little bit more time to answer. Yeah, it's a select all. So any of those actions that feel relevant to you and that you'd like to pursue. And we're here to support you in those actions. I think that's an important thing that we want to mention is Sun is here to make it easier to do these things. We have a lot of technical assistance and expertise and really want to be supporting and representing solar owners and supporters. We're about half of those folks have filled out this question, so we'll give people a little bit more time. And tomorrow, you all will receive a follow-up email with the recording, the slides, as well as an invitation to complete that community feedback survey that Vote Solar has organized that they will use as additional evidence in their testimony as to why this is a bad proposal. So if you can fill that out, that's a huge help and definitely a way of making your voice heard. And that should only take about 5 minutes. We're gonna keep that poll just open one more minute, um, just to catch any folks. People might be multitasking as well. We know how that goes. It's easy to be over in the kitchen and not by your computer and just listening in. Right. Well, I think we're gonna end the poll and lastly, I just want to extend my appreciation for all of you taking the time out of your Thursday night to be with us and to learn more about this specific general rate case and how you can get involved. It really means a lot, and it takes all of us to show up and ensure that affordability is prioritized in Nevada and that we are defending solar rights. Have a great rest of your evening, and thanks again.